So this morning on the 4th of July, as I prepare to deliver this sermon, I'd like to read something that many of us are probably very familiar with. It is a part of a poem called The New Colossus by Emma Lazarus. And in that, she calls the statue Mother of Exiled. From her beaconed hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep ancient lands your storied pomp, cries she, with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. And so with those words, we hear much of well, there's some mythology in there, and there's also a lot of possibility, a lot of promise, and a lot of grace. The grace to welcome people, all types of people, people from different backgrounds and different abilities, different cultures, different languages. And so that's what I want to talk today about in as we look at the scriptures we had today. So today we heard two stories, two narratives, one from Paul in his second letter to Corinth, and we also heard an account from the Gospel of Mark about Jesus going back to his hometown. And both of them, when we first look at it, we're like, well, what do these stories have in common? And what I would propose to you is that a lot of these narratives in the Bible have to do with prejudices, suppositions, people not fully understanding, but yet saying that their way is the right way, their way is the only way, and not fully understanding the abilities of the people involved and the ability of God to work wonders within us. And so, as you've seen in the service so far, it's really very heavy on the theme of disability. And so, what is disability? Well, in my world, I consider disability anytime an ability is sort of taken away or moved off the table. Disability can be a self-acknowledgement, and it can also be done to people. So you take people's ability away. And so as we're listening to Paul's story about his interactions in Corinth, and I actually used the message this Sunday because the words of the scripture are so mysterious. I think the message sort of hits home. Paul talks about somebody who's taken up into heaven 14 years ago, and that this person saw the wonders, but he wasn't allowed to talk about it. And then Paul talks about himself, and he talks about this thorn in his flesh. And this thorn in his flesh has perplexed Bible scholars. It's been interpreted as much as an evil spirit, the devil, a minion of the devil, a physical affliction like epilepsy, chronic pain, arthritis. There are so many things that just a metaphorical pain in his side. And so we're not really sure exactly what Paul is talking about this thorn. But That's not the important thing. What we know is that it is bothering him, and it impacts him, and it impacts his daily life and his ministry and his ability to move with people, and he prays to God to have it taken away. So it's a disability because it's affecting his ability to work in the ways of God, and he prays to God to please take it. And then there's an amazing part of this scripture when God talks to Paul and says, "You know what? My grace is enough for you." And so in Paul's recognition of this disability, of this pain, of this whatever is hindering him, okay, he turns to God, and God's like, "You know what? I'll work with you on it because nothing's impossible, okay? This won't stop you. My grace is sufficient. My love is sufficient." And so I can move in many ways. I'm going to read you the last part of this from the Message translation. It says, "My grace is enough. It's all you need. My strength comes into its own in your weakness." And once I heard that, I was glad to let it happen. I quit focusing on the handicap and began appreciating the gift. It was a case of Christ's strength moving in on my weakness, and now I take limitations in stride. And with good cheer, these limitations that cut me down to size, abuse, accidents, oppositions, bad breaks, I just let Christ take over. And so the weaker I get, the stronger I become. So I want you to hold that quote about strength in weakness and acknowledging, um, honestly, acknowledging our limitations and abilities, and being able then to derive strength from that. Not only just from God, but from ourselves and from other people. Now we turn to Gospel of Mark, where Jesus is visiting his hometown. And he stops in, and it's a Sabbath, and he decides to do the things you do on the Sabbath. So imagine if you've been traveling and you go back to your hometown, and you're like, "Oh, I want to stop by my church and my community and participate and see what's going on." And so Jesus goes to his community where they're reading on the Sabbath, and he gets up and he's lecturing in the meeting place, and everybody's just amazed. They're amazed at him, and they're like, "Wow, who is this person? How does he know so much?" And then somebody says, "You know what? Isn't that Jesus? Isn't that Jesus from down the street who we know?" J-Lo had that song "Jenny from the Block." Isn't that Jesse from the Block? Isn't that Mary's son? We know his brothers and sisters. What is he saying? And suddenly all of that amazement, everything that Jesus was saying out the door, because they're letting their prejudices sort of thwart their experience of God, their experience of Jesus. And everything just shuts down. And Jesus is sort of amazed, like, what's going on with you people? And, you're not looking at what I'm doing right now, what I can do, what I am doing. You are looking at me through the lens of what I was, a context that I'm no longer in, and you're limiting me. You're prejudging me. You're letting your prejudice take away my ability, disabling me. And so in this case, Jesus is disabled. And he finds it's funny because the gospel said, he decides to go and he can only heal a couple of people. And previously Jesus is drawing crowds because he's healing so many people because the people are listening, they're open, they are experiencing God. But because his hometown is working in disability and taking his ability away, handicapping Jesus, there are no miracles. They're not able to experience the healing and the wonder of God. And they had just had it. They had just had it right at the beginning when they're like, who is this? This is amazing. Because they were seeing with new eyes. Then those prejudices sort of roll back and they have their expectations. So these scriptures really, really talk to me because, gonna get tired of my old stroke stories, but it was such an impactful moment in my life. And this time, I don't want to talk about what the my experience of stroke did to me, but about the disability that is part of this now, part of me, because I had to come to terms a few years ago that I am disabled. I have one of those nice little blue parking um, lanyards that you put on the back of the window, and and sometimes that labels me. That labels me, and it took a lot of reflection because there is denial when we're looking at ability. There is denial about what you can, and more importantly, what you can't do. And one of the things that I've come to terms with is that I need Sabbath, I need rest. Where I saw something like Sabbath and rest in the past as sort of being lazy and being selfish, I now see that it's critical to what I need, my health and my ministry and who I am and what I do. So I really need to be in tune with my body. But there's also a part of my disability that I'm still sort of coming to terms with. And that is sometimes people's reactions when they hear that I've had two strokes. And I try not to share the disability parts very much because what it does is just like Jesus in the temple in his hometown. I began to see people allowing their prejudices take hold. And they wonder, hey, is this guy up to what he needs to do? Do I need to pull the chair out for him? Do I need to open the door? Do I need to remind him to rest? And so it becomes really this odd thing where I'm sort of killed with kindness, where these limitations on my ability are placed on me because people have prejudices that, oh, he's disabled, so he needs special something. Now, if I need special something, I'll ask for it. And most people I know who have a special ability or a disability will ask. But, many people like doing what they can do, how they can do it. They learned and have become very comfortable in asking for help. And so the the prejudice is sometimes that where I'm kind of, like I said, killed with kindness. It becomes frustrating sometimes because I want to have my ministry full, and I know it's not the same as it was, but I'm still able to do things. And if people open their minds, they're able to do it. And so that's why in some groups, I don't mention anything about it, because it sort of brings a layer of doubt into my ability. Or sometimes if I have to use my cane, people get very concerned, because it's like, oh, why Pastor John has his cane out? It's, I hope he's okay. And my family is so funny, because my son will actually tell me if I'm like looking tired or sitting. He's like, are you having a stroke? I'm like, no, I'm fine. I will let you know. So those are some of the prejudices that we have to work beyond, is labeling people and holding them down. And I know in my case, 100% of it is out of love and concern for me, and I'm so grateful for that part. But the flip side, there's a flip side, and that is, inability. You also need to be realistic. Like I said, there were a lot of things I had to admit to myself, that, when I was younger, I thought I was invincible. I didn't have to take care of myself. I didn't have to take my blood pressure. I didn't have to watch what I eat, things like that. And so I do that now, because I know it's important. And I'm able to live in a gift. And so it's accepting that responsibility, giving grace to myself, that I'm able to live into the grace of God. And I've talked about, when I was in the hospital, sitting on the gurney, being whisked away, and it overcame me, and I'm just like, what have I done? What have I done? And then I just felt this grace, and it was the grace of God. And it's like, it'll be okay. It will be okay. And it has been okay, and it's been wonderful. And then my family supported me, and then the real miracle was how the community supported me. This community, other UCC communities, my school, because I was in seminary at the time, interfaith, different interfaith communities were supporting me. I had so many people praying for me, and it was living in that grace that changed my life and helped me realize a new way of being. So we have to live in grace and let our weaknesses become our strength. Let our abilities shine, and more importantly, don't force disabilities on people for any reason. It doesn't have to be a physical ability. It could be where someone came from. It could be someone's language. It could be someone's socioeconomic level. It could be someone's political party. Whatever it is that prejudices us, that makes us take away rather than enhance. Those are the things that Paul was talking about, the thorn. Jesus, at the end of the story, I love this, he doesn't get all brokenhearted and say, oh, why doesn't my hometown love me? Oh, I'm ruined. No, he goes out, and then he commissions his disciples to go out into the world. And Jesus is stronger than ever. And the important thing he tells? He tells them, if they don't listen to you, if you're not received well, if they have prejudices against you, shake the dust off and just go on. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean to ignore people, but sometimes when people are ready to hear, or their eyes are opened, then you can go back. Or what I like is, there are other ways to reach out to those people. Maybe by going to this group over here, you can come back around and get these people. But don't get yourself all twisted up, banging your head against the wall, trying to make headroom where there's none to be had at that moment. Okay, like I said, we don't ignore justice because we're hitting a wall, but go to a different place. Don't let it become obsessive. That's the main thing. And then we can all live in God's grace. So this 4th of July, I encourage you to celebrate. I want you to celebrate the possibilities of this country. And like I said, part of living into the fullness of God is acknowledging failures and weaknesses. And how do we improve them? And what abilities can we do? And what disabilities are being forced on us? And what do we embrace? What limitations do we embrace? And what can we do? It's a lot of hard work, but you know what? When we all live in God's grace, that's sufficient for all of us. So have a happy 4th of July and live in ability and uplift. So peace.